The Seahawk from 1940. I mean, this one was just amazing. Let's just dive right in. The credits roll, and oh man, we got that Erick Korngold music, that rousing, energetic opening theme as the credits appear across footage of sailing ships. This one's got Errol Flynn as a swashbuckling hero. It's got gorgeous actress Brenda Marshall. It's got so many excellent actors in it, and it's all directed by Michael Kurtiz of Casablanca fame. Oh man, who could ask for more? This one's going to be good. So I'll summarize the film and then give some closing thoughts. So the story here is that King Philip II of Spain, he plans to expand the empire, and he has sent his ambassador, Don Alvarez, played by Claude Rains, to meet with the Queen of England and, quell these rumors about a mighty Spanish armada invading England. Now on the ship with him, we see the lovely Donna Maria, played by actress Brenda Marshall. Caught her not too long ago in a silly film called The Smiling Ghost. She's there on deck playing paddleball with actress Una O'Connor. One of those great actresses from a bunch of the old Universal monster films. Now, things seem to be fine on deck, but below we see the galley slaves at work rowing the boat. Now, one of the old guys rowing is just sure that they have arrived at the English Channel. He just knows. And that's our cue as an English ship approaches. Well, the ship is the Albatross, and her captain, Geoffrey Thorpe, is played here by Errol Flynn. The crew is getting excited as they move into action, and basically move in and they blow the Spanish ship apart. The battle sequence here is incredible, as shot after shot is fired and they just blow it apart. And as they get close, the captain yells out, "It's cutlasses now, men. Let's get ready to board her." And they throw these grappling hooks and draw the other ship close, splintering apart the oars of the Spanish ship. And then it's this big old massive battle of hand-to-hand combat. It's amazing. Flynn's Captain Thorpe is right there in his environment, slashing away with his sword. We're barely 15 minutes into this film, and it's into pure swashbuckling awesomeness.
Your ship's sinking, Captain. Then we shall drown together. Brave but impractical. Now, we English are practical people. I've no intention of drowning with you.
So the crew member Carl, played by jovial actor Alan Hale, defeats the captain, who gives a surrender horn. And the defeated Spanish captain is played here by actor Gilbert Roland. Well, they free all of the galley prisoners, and then they set to work looting the ship before it sinks completely. So Don Alvarez and his niece, Donna Maria, are taken aboard this other boat, and they plan to bring them back to England with them. Now, Captain Thorpe seems a little more than interested in Donna Maria, but she seems kind of bothered by this roguish pirate. Well, we arrive back at the court of Queen Elizabeth, played expertly here by Dame Flora Robson. And Don Alvarez is granted an audience, and of course he complains about how poorly treated he was. "I'm shocked. Oh, wait, wrong film. Well, Captain Thorpe and his men, who are part of the Seahawks, or, in other words, English privateers who go around raiding Spanish ships, they're summoned before the Queen, and she publicly scolds them, as this could disrupt the peace that England has with Spain. The Queen then wants to speak privately with Captain Thorpe, and we see that she seems to tolerate this rogue of a captain, annoyed at him, but at the same time kind of seems amused by his antics. Well, he brings her a gift of a monkey as well as some jewelry. The old smoothie. Now, the captain has a plan that he shares with the Queen, and his plan is to take the Spanish by surprise. He plans to sail to the Caribbean and seize a Spanish treasure fleet that's coming back from Spain's colonies down there. Now, the Queen listens. Seems like maybe she's not completely on board at first, but he manages to convince her, this will all be done, under the radar.
Captain Thorpe, if you undertook such a venture, you would do so without the approval of the Queen of England. But you would take with you the grateful affection of Elizabeth.
So a little bit later in the Queen's garden, Donna Maria is there. She's gathering some flowers with Miss Latham, but Miss Latham scurries away as she sees Captain Thorpe approaching. Well, Donna Maria has warmed up to the captain and forgives him for his earlier piracy stuff, and they start to speak openly about their feelings. And it's actually a very beautiful scene with how it's all put together. The scenery, the costumes, and especially the music, as the two are falling in love.
Donna Maria, in the garden of a convent in Peru, there's a beautiful statue. The nuns call it Nuestra Senora de las Flores. That's how I'll always think of you, as my Lady of the Roses.
Now, the Spanish delegates, these sneaky characters, Don Alvarez and Lord Wolfingham, I love that name, by the way, Wolfingham, they're curious about what Captain Thorpe's plans are, and they go to interrogate the chart maker. So, Lord Wolfingham, he's played here, by the way, by actor Henry Daniell, one of those excellent bad guy actors. He figures out what Captain Thorpe's plan is, and they prepare for his arrival in Panama. Now later, Donna Maria overhears Don Alvarez talking about this ambush, and she's alarmed, and she rides off quickly to warn Captain Thorpe, but too late. The boat is already sailing off. Quick, go get your jet ski. It's not too late. So the men make their way to Panama, and you'll notice something interesting in this film is that the film is now tinted with a sepia tone. It was kind of a clever device the filmmakers used to kind of suggest the warmth of the Caribbean environment. Well, Captain Thorpe and his crew arrive. They attack some Spanish forces and kind of win a small skirmish, but eventually they're ambushed by more troops and they are driven into the swamps. They struggle their way through the heat and the vines and so on. They finally make it to the shore. Phew, they can see their boat. And they slowly row back to it, but something is wrong. There's a lot of eerie suspense here. Nobody seems to be on board to greet them. And you're wondering, what's going on here? And the Spanish troops appear and outnumber them. And they're captured. They're brought back to Spain. They're put on trial before this creepy Inquisition court. And Captain Thorpe and his men, they're judged for their crimes, convicted, and they're sentenced to be galley slaves for the rest of their lives. So we cut over to the court of Elizabeth, and there Donna Maria is singing a lovely song. However, Don Alvarez arrives and informs the Queen of Captain Thorpe's fate as a galley slave. And Donna Maria hears this news and passes out. Her servants take her away, and Alvarez, meanwhile, gets right to the point and brings up accusations that the Queen was behind this all along and knew all about Captain Thorpe's actions. Well, she's had enough and orders him to get out.
What are you saying? Do you dare come to me with threats? Out of my court before I order your arrest!
So Alvarez goes to visit with Donna Maria, who is sobbing, and she pleads for Captain Thorpe, but to no avail. No, poor Captain Thorpe and his crew are now chained up in a galley. However, not all hope is lost. As Thorpe is there and he's rowing away, he meets another prisoner named Abbott, actor James Stevenson, who was captured trying to sneak undercover evidence of the Spanish schemes of an Armada invasion. Well, the prisoners manage to escape and take over the ship, and then they board another ship in the harbor where they seize some secret plans. Now, Captain Thorpe and his men hope to sail back to England to deliver these secret plans to the Queen, but can they make it in time? Will that fiendish Lord Wolfingham stop Captain Thorpe? And will Thorpe and Donna Maria know true love together? Well, you got to watch the exciting conclusion of this epic film for yourself to see. So some closing thoughts. The Seahawk from 1940 was a blast. This had everything that I love in old classics. It had action, adventure, romance, humor, beautiful sets and costumes, a larger-than-life hero, a gorgeous love interest, some sneaky and sinister villains with plenty of exciting fight scenes, and that soundtrack. Wow, I have to get right into this. Erick Korngold's score for the Seahawk. It's hands down one of the finest soundtracks I've ever heard. I mean, what stirring and memorable motifs, but more than that, the musical narrative carries through the entire film. I mean, scene after scene, the music is just so essential to this film. Not just the opening credits, but various scenes like the Queen pondering Thorpe's plans, or Thorpe and his romantic moments with Donna Maria in the garden, or the conditions of the dreary Spanish galley, or the march through the Panama jungle. I mean, heck, even Captain Thorpe's pet monkey had a little musical theme as well. Now, my three fans know that I'm often praising John Williams as my favorite composer of all time. And you can't help but watch a film like this, listening to the amazing orchestral motifs, and not see how this could have easily been an inspiration to him, particularly his collaborations with filmmakers like Steven Spielberg. And honestly, in a couple places, I could hear passages of music that actually reminded me specifically of Williams' scores. Notably the scene when Captain Thorpe's men escape from the galley. The music of that scene was very reminiscent to me of a passage from the movie Hook that John Williams wrote the music for. Now, am I complaining? Not at all. I mean, if Erick Korngold scored this amazing film and how it works so well with this larger-than-life movie, inspired composers like John Williams in his collaborations with directors like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, then that's awesome. No complaints at all. I mean, I love seeing inspiration that could have been used later by composers and producers. All right, I have to get off the subject of film music and get back to some background about the movie. So after the success of Captain Blood, another epic swashbuckler film I've reviewed on this channel before, Warner Brothers decided to adapt another Raphael Sabatini novel, The Seahawk. The idea of Seahawks is, the idea of sea dogs, these marauding privateers who would attack and loot Spanish ships, bringing the prizes back to Queen Elizabeth. They took a little liberty here with the history, but, I don't mind. The film is so good. It's fascinating to me that to make this film, Warner built an enormous soundstage housing two full-scale ships, one that was 165 feet, the other 135 feet, both surrounded by 12 feet of water. I mean, it's absolutely insane to think about this. But when you watch that opening sea battle with the Albatross and the Spanish ship, the details there are just extraordinary. I mean, you really feel like you're out there at sea watching this thing take place. Errol Flynn played Captain Geoffrey Thorpe, who was one of the most famous of the privateers of the high seas. And the character is based on the real-life historical figure of Sir Francis Drake, who was a privateer who eventually became Elizabeth's second-in-command in their battle against the Spanish Armada. Errol Flynn is, of course, right in his element here as the dashing hero, his sword slashing in battle. He's revered by his men. All the while, he's romancing the lovely maiden. And even in the despair of his enslavement in the galley ship, he never loses hope. Errol Flynn is larger than life. He's just right at home in this role, and he was perfect as Captain Thorpe. Now, The Seahawk was directed by Michael Kurtiz of many great motion pictures, most notably the greatest film ever, Casablanca. And apparently, he and Errol Flynn did not get along well together. Michael Kurtiz hated how casual Flynn was about his work and how he'd often arrive late on set, often as a result of his wilder private life. And Errol Flynn thought that Michael Kurtiz was arrogant and a taskmaster. So they didn't get along well, but yet they would work together on numerous classics of Hollywood. I mean, these are some epic films. Captain Blood in 1935, Charge of the Light Brigade in 1936, The Adventures of Robin Hood in 1938, and The Santa Fe Trail in 1940. So I'm glad they were sort of able to put their differences aside to make epic films like this. Brenda Marshall was beautiful as Donna Maria, the niece of the Ambassador Alvarez and the love interest of Captain Thorpe. And it's a curious thing is that I watch an Errol Flynn film, I'm half expecting actress Olivia de Havilland, as they were in so many films together. But in this case, I think Brenda Marshall was a better choice, specifically to play a Spanish character. I've only seen her in a couple reviews and never realized that one of her claims to fame was that she was married to William Holden. Claude Rains was excellent as the Spanish ambassador, although maybe he's not in the film as much as I would have liked. He made an excellent scheming villain, along with actor Henry Daniell, who was just fantastic as Wolfingham, particularly in that epic sword fight near the end of the film. Henry Daniell is also in the Michael Shayne film Dressed to Kill, which is on my list. So hopefully, maybe, that might be the next review. Stay tuned. Dame Flora Robson was perfect as Queen Elizabeth. As an actress, she's so much fun to watch as this colorful queen with so much personality and character. As you watch her expressions and moods change on the screen, like her initial annoyance at Captain Thorpe's hijinks, listening to him with curiosity, the could such a plan succeed, and then finally giving into a scheme with her support with that big cheeky smile at the end. I love it. She was a great actress and had a fantastic costume as well. I mean, actually, all of the costumes were amazing in this film. Flora Robson also played Queen Elizabeth in the 1937 film Fire Over England. And also a fun but obscure role that I've seen her in before was from Clash of the Titans from 1981. She was briefly in the film as one of those Stygian witches, the give me the eye. Oh man, that film creeped me out as a kid. But watching it today, I just marvel at the special effects of that. And there were some legends of Hollywood in that film. I might have to do a review of Clash of the Titans. Who knows? And there were many great performances to make a note of. I'll just point out a couple others. Some of Captain Thorpe's men were some familiar faces. Character Martin was played by David Bruce of the Mad Ghoul fame. I reviewed that a while ago on the channel. And Carl was played by Alan Hale. Senior, not Alan Hale Jr., hey little buddy, skipper of Gilligan's Island. No, but the resemblance is definitely there. And one final note, I did read a number of reviews on this film that commented on the subtext of the film. It's not always completely subtle, but if you look at the film from the perspective of moviegoers in 1940, you can probably figure out what the subtle message of the film was at the time. Here's England, standing heroically strong against a powerful and devious nation from the European continent. Whatever could this film be referring to? But regardless of any messages, this film is just a swashbuckling, epic masterpiece. Sea battles, sword fights, adventure, romance, and humor with a brilliant musical score. It's got it all. This is for sure a classic of Hollywood, and it's definitely one you got to go and check out.